as it is the powerful style of our time, and the honorable style of all times to come. Let us gloriously rejoice. Fire, smoke, ash, charcoal, barren hillside, desolation, smog, flame, heat, scorched earth. I hope that you have envisioned a roaring fire, which is helping you stay warm. The day of wrath, that awful day, shall reduce the world to ashes, as David and the Sibyl prophesied. How great will be the terror when the judge shall come to examine all things rigorously. The trumpet with astounding blast, echoing over the sepulchres of the whole world, shall compel all before the throne. Death and nature will stand aghast when the creature shall rise again to answer before his judge. Observe, a red-bellied woodpecker. Yes, it has a red stripe on its head, but in fact this is the red-bellied woodpecker because there is a patch of red on its belly. The true red-headed woodpecker has a head which is fully red. Red-headed woodpeckers have been known to be partly carnivorous, and in fact will sometimes eat the young of other birds. Who knew? This is a great thing for us to recognize, especially during the winter when the leaves are gone from the trees. This makes birding an easier activity. I haven't seen as many birds recently as I would like to see, but I think it's important for us to learn certain lessons from the birds. For example, during the summer, male cardinals will be extremely competitive with one another. They will fight for resources, including mates and food, and perhaps even water in dire circumstances. However, during the winter, one may often see large flocks of cardinals all foraging together. They form a blotch of red upon the white snow as they go from feeder to feeder. And there's something that's really great to be understood in this moment. What we must understand is that at times it is important to come together. This is such a lesson that none of us ever hear and that none of us have ever heard. We have never learned about the importance of working together or trying to see the good in one another. We never hear this. This is something which is completely foreign to our minds, and I'm happy to be the one who's finally breaking the news. Oh my gosh, is there actually a fly in this garage? Holy cow, is this fly dead or alive? I'm not going to find out. In fact, I would much rather let a warbler take care of it, or perhaps a bluebird or another insect-eating bird, but not many birds eat flies because they probably have learned evolutionarily or in other ways that these insects carry disease at probably disproportionately high levels compared to other insects such as worms. Back to the birds. The sandhill cranes are a migratory bird species. They are found throughout the Midwest, and they're a truly beautiful bird reminiscent of our dinosaur forebears. They allow us to reconnect to the past in a certain sense, in a deeper way that we're not, in a way in which we're not able to connect, as in the sense of cardinals. Cardinals are perhaps too modern. Cardinals are the moderns. The postmodern birds are, in fact, the blue jays, because they're in fact not even blue. But the interesting thing about the sandhill crane, there is a neighbor. They do exist. The interesting thing about the sandhill crane is that they return to the same sites year after year. Well, really, that's not something interesting about the sandhill crane itself so much as it is about many birds and other species in general. For example, orioles, they'll form these high nesting cavities high up in the trees, and they're sort of these wicker baskets almost, and they come to the same places year after year after year, and
days growing colder, nights growing darker, snow falling softly, stars start to glow. Season is changing, but I'm remaining an evergreen, the sturdy kind. Here in the forest I hear a chorus of chickadees trying to keep warm, perched on my branches till winter passes. They found a home, the sturdy kind. All of a sudden someone starts cutting, cut through my bark, my trunk's on the ground, tied me up tightly, drove away with me just down the road to a tiny town. Sat by the fireplace, this is my new space, feeling the warmth, my needles will fall. Then they adorn me with sorts of finery, colorful globes and garlands of gold. Just like the chickadees, still colors find me, trading the stars for ribbons of light. Though I am changing, still I'm remaining a Christmas tree, the sturdy kind.
yes, what great effects indeed. are barren. We can perceive only their form, not their appearance. In fact, their appearance is almost entirely stripped away.
Merry Christmas, everyone. My name is Arabella, and I'm going to tell you why you should never make sauce when playing with an exercise ball. You may end up forming overly crystallized caramel instead. My background is in material science, and through this experience, I discovered there is a surprising amount of similarities between polymer and food chemistry. I hope at the end of this mini tangent, you too are inspired to run the same experiment, accidental or not. So this all started when I wanted to make my own version of the popular winter-esque brown sugar shaken espresso from Starbucks. I had started the process of making brown sugar syrup and was distracted playing with my new exercise ball that I got to kind of be more active in front of the TV. I left it for a solid 50 minutes on the stove, my sugar water mixture, and when I came back, I had formed a brown sticky mess, which turned into rock solid tar after cooling. So today we're going to discuss what happened here and how to prevent this atrocity in your own kitchen. After all, it's a component for a ton of desserts leading into this holiday season, and when done right, can be terribly delicious. So making caramel is done by melting down granulated sucrose into its liquid state. If you melt it just above its melting temperature, when it cools, it will form a glassy solid. And this is because essentially you are liquefying the crystals, but then when they cool, they're going to form back into this amorphous state. However, if you heat them above a certain point, to about 180 degrees, at that point, you actually are breaking the sucrose into fructose and glucose. And then when it cools, it will turn into this sticky consistency. So similar to polymers, which undergo crystallization between their glass transition and melting temperature, the same thing can happen with sugar, and that creates a broken caramel. This proper caramelization technique caramelization process occurs through a process discovered by a French scientist known as the Maillard process. Essentially, the aldehyde and the glucose molecule react with an amino group and start to brown. But this can only happen above a certain temperature when that sucrose can break down and undergo ring opening. So in my situation, the caramel is broken, and what can happen is the sugar crystals form when too much water is evaporated, such is the case when residual syrup accumulates on the edges of the pan. As the water evaporates, you end up creating a supersaturated solution, which will eventually precipitate out sugar crystals. And from there, you can quickly have a chain reaction forming where the crystals on the edge can fall in and then create nucleation sites for more sugar crystals to grow. It's actually very similar to how you might try and grow like a rock candy, for example. It's much easier for new crystals to grow onto existing ones than to form in solution on their own. And then as the enthalpy of a system decreases by crystallization, long times plus nucleation sites leads to this chain reaction forming. You can avoid this by adding an acid such as lemon or cream of tartar. While many think this is an old wives' tale, adding the acid such as tartaric acid that you find in cream of tartar actually causes the sugars to break down into sucrose and fructose via an ether cleavage. In the culinary world, this might be called as an invert sugar, and that is essentially what's happening also if you heat the caramel above 180 degrees. So this will likely prevent crystallization in your sauce, and be sure to put you on the nice list. Of course, you could always just watch it. Hope this was helpful.
I hope that you've planned little but done a lot. Thank you. So, I'd like to talk about the history of sledding. Many say sledding began last year, but those of us who know better know that sledding in fact began 2 years ago. What are you doing? Okay, now you're going away? Okay. Some people and or cats are not interested in sledding like we are. Whoa. Be careful there. That's what someone would say when they're about to wipe out. But enough of this. Let's get into the deep history of sledding. So in all seriousness, sledding began sometime around 1450. That's when roughly the first recorded sled was invented. Roughly the time frame we're looking at. Now, sledding is best experienced through speech rather than through action. Sledding is not something that people should be allowed to do simply. There should be study involved. There should be rigor. There should be tribulation. Many forget this fact. Please do not look. Please no looking. Please no looking. Okay. Very good. But many forget that tribulation is a part of... no biting either. Why is biting okay? And back to licking. Okay. Okay, good job. Yes, thank you. What is up with licking? Licking is not a part of sledding. It is not part of the history of sledding either. Okay. So, once again, the history of sledding. In historical terms, there is only one great law, the law of unintended consequences. Now you're biting at my... Okay. In history, there is but one law, that is the law of unintended consequences. Sledding is not spared from this law. So, let's review some of the unintended consequences of sledding. Well, for those of us who have seen The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when that one especially whiny guy goes through the door into the snowy place and he comes across the, what is she called? The Winter Witch? Something like that. In any case, she's being drawn on a sled or a sleigh, and then she gives the whiny guy Turkish delights. That seems like a really good food for whiny people, to be honest. Whoever decided that he was going to eat Turkish delights kind of had that down. That was a good move. Now, many would say that that didn't happen in history, but I would say that it happened so truly that it's actually more than something that happened. It's actually something that really happened. Okay. A vast majority of Christmas exists inside the sugar coma brain. Here's what I mean. In Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker, the entire second half of that ballet is all about this girl going around this fairy tale land where there's all kinds of hallucinations from different parts of the world, and they're essentially all based off of sweets and caffeine. And also this Mother Ginger character, which, don't get me started. I'm kind of all about that character. But in any case, yeah, I'm really all about that character. But I think that that second half of the Nutcracker shows us that we truly exist inside a sugar coma brain. I think that's why that second half resonates with us. As soon as you hear bum 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 ba-da-da-da-dum, as soon as you hear that, you enter the sugar coma brain. You're there. You're ready. And I think that's what our society exists within. We exist within a sugar coma brain. We are surrounded by sugar at all times. We've got great amounts of sugar in the soda, phenomenal amounts in the bread. We have a great sugar culture. Our sugar culture is unparalleled. It's a thing of beauty. It's something that we should support and something which we should further enhance. But I'm getting too political now, aren't I? My point, though, is that we exist within the sugar coma world. And the sugar coma world allows us to move as one as a society. So that's what's being reflected in the Nutcracker, especially in its second half, because that's when you encounter the Trepak dance, the bum ba da dum ba 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 bum. You encounter that, and you encounter the Arabian dance, da 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 da. You know, I'll spare more of my little singing escapades here, but the point is that we need to recognize that we get certain cues that tell us where we're at within our sugar coma hive mind. Oh, here she comes. So, oh, there's the sugar coma cat. There you are. Meow. Meow. Okay, thank you for... Oh man, your paws are cold. You've been outside. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so that's kind of the point of that. Thank you. Sitting in a room with no lighting. Just slits of sunlight coming through. The sky is dark, gray, overcast. Every word that a Midwest weather reporter would use. Why am I here? What am I doing? When will the apocalypse come? Is the apocalypse here yet? Maybe I should order some Wendy's. These are the thoughts. The snow and the ice and the gravel make for conditions which allow you to do things which you normally wouldn't be able to do. For example, in ancient times in Siberia, people used to go down the hillside on skis, but they had a paddle as a sort of rudder which they held behind them, and they would hunt that way. I would encourage you to hunt this way in your local park. The deer population problem in the United States, especially in the Midwest, is very real and present. It is a present and clear danger. The deer must be called. It may not be pleasant, but it is your duty. So I encourage you deeply. Go to your local park, and when you go to your local park, don the ancient Siberian gear, which you must, and which you have, most assuredly. And once you have done so, begin to traverse the hillsides, hunting whatever you can. When people question you, ignore them. When the authorities are called on you, well, you'll know what to do in terms of being compliant, but you must explain to them that you are simply donning the ancient Siberian gear and simply helping society. And then, inevitably, the townsfolk will question your motives. Many folk will question your motives, but you will not. And then you will begin your political campaign. You will begin in the great state of Iowa, and from there you will march forth. You must first win the Iowa caucus, and you will win this through great corruption and great scandal. But it does not matter, because you hold to the Ancient Siberian Way. In the Ancient Siberian Way, corruption and scandal have no meaning. They have no words for corruption and scandal, because it is simply part and parcel of their great society. So as you hold to the Ancient Siberian Way with your rudder and your ancient gear, then you will go forth from Iowa unto the lands of Oklahoma. And there in Oklahoma you shall find many great flatlands, which you shall use to run your tanks upon the land. So these are examples of great winter activities that you can do with the whole family. There's really no age limit to this. In fact, I started this sort of activity when I was, about 3? It got me to where I am today. Many would say social pariah, but I would just say divergent thinker. And I think that it's important for us to keep in mind that winter is a time when we get to explore. It's a time when we get to embrace new things. It's a time when we get to run tanks across the heartland of America. This is what winter's all about. So, I thank you all. Thank you. I believe that some form of severe ascetical practice is probably a cool thing for kids to grow up with. For example, during the Christmas season, when other kids are writing their letters to Sinterklausen and they're getting all ready and they're decorating things and they feel very fun and they're excited, I think it's good for there to be some children who are remembering that what we are truly celebrating is the coming of the end of the world. Joy to the World, for example, that piece was actually written in reference to the second coming of Christ. That piece is actually an end times piece. And I think that it would be really special if there were more 7-year-olds who were aware of that and who went around informing people of that, because most adults don't know this. So I just really like the idea of the youth being the ones to bring forward the apocalyptic meaning of Christmas, the apocalyptic backdrop, if you will, the apocalyptic hope. I think that that would be something that would be very beautiful. I think that's something that would revitalize our culture, would turn us away from the consumerism which everyone decries, except me. I don't decry it, but which many people decry. that we've done that, let's sing Feliz Navidad. I'm going to let you do most of the singing, but don't worry, I'll fill in some of the words. Ready? Feliz. E. Wanna. Navidad. Prospero. Felicidad. Wow, you did really well. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Bye. Needless intensity drives much of the world, and it especially drives this Christmas shopping season in the secular sense. Needless intensity. It's something that people like. They don't want to admit that they like it, but they do. People love needless intensity, including me. My needless intensity journey started long ago, but here's a good example from my time in high school. When I was in high school, I figured out that as long as I was in the hallway that I needed, this one particular hallway, by 7:38 a.m., I could get to my classroom right at 7:40. And I love the game. I'm a player of the game. I love the game. I think we all love our games in one sense or another. We love the game of needless intensity. And you might say, no, I hate being stressed. I hate all that. Nuh-uh. You like it. And you know it. Here's an example. Who in their right mind starts doing a little Christmas shopping in the summer? Just a little bit. It would make it so much easier, right? It's not like there aren't sales year-round. It's not like Black Friday is a real deal day anymore, even if it ever was. But there's no reason. You could do a little Christmas shopping, in July. You could do that. There's some sales, but you don't. You know why? Because you love telling everyone how behind you are in December. You love that rush. You love that last minute. I love it, and I know you do too. You can't deny it. You can't deny the game. It's the game we play. It's the game we love. And it's the game that we've developed. It's the game that we play. There are certain birds that come from Canada every winter. They're called dark-eyed juncos. They come typically from Canada, but typically they summer further north. And yeah, I'm using the word summer as a verb. And no, I've never summered in Nice, France before, and I never want to. And I desire, in fact, to only go to the worst places seasonally. So I desire to only summer in Miami, not Miami, Miami. In any case, the dark-eyed juncos come, and during the summer months they're further north. During the winter months they come further south, and they'll often hang out in northern Indiana for the winter. And when they're here, I hope that you've planned little but done a lot. Thank you. So there's a certain kind of ginger beer from Bundaberg that I've only ever seen available around the Christmas season. This ginger beer, I think they call it spiced ginger beer, so there's some sort of cinnamon kick in there. It's one of my favorite variants of ginger beer. So if any of you happen to find this stuff, please get it. I'll reimburse you. Or you can give it as a gift. That's a great idea as a last minute gift. I don't know how I'll organize it, but we'll talk at some point in here about how society runs on needless intensity and how people love last minute shopping even though they claim not to. They absolutely love it. They're really into it. It's their favorite thing. It's like me and Mother Ginger. But the thing is that I would like very much to have it. So thank you. As it is the powerful style of our time and the honorable style of all times to come, let us gloriously rejoice. As it is the powerful style of our time and the honorable style of all times to come, let us gloriously rejoice.